stories glow. Palm lantern ignite, where the tales will flow. Whispers of the night, under moonlit skies. Every word so bright, in your mind it lies. Palm lantern light guides you through the night. Every tale in sight makes your heart ignite.
The evening sun cast golden rays over the red soil of Ibadan. As a weary traveler approached the city, his shoulders sagged under the weight of years of regret, a burden he carried like an invisible load. As he sat in the old hut that he managed to rent, he was drawn to the voice on the radio. In his trembling hand, he clutched a small transistor radio. The voice on the radio felt familiar and painfully distant. The voice of a son he had not seen in years. As the melody of a popular song faded, the announcer's excited voice declared, "That was the latest hit by Timi, Nigeria's own superstar." The father's heart ached with pride and sorrow at the mention of his son's name, Timi. His son was now a celebrated musician adored by millions. He closed his eyes, letting the next song wash over his guilt. It was one of Timi's songs, a soulful Afrofusion, about longing, lost time, and forgiveness. As he listened, tears rolled down his cheeks. It felt as if the song had been written for him. He remembered the last time he heard that voice in person, the small, pleading voice of his crying son, saying, "Daddy, please don't go." He swallowed hard, the memory bitter. He was younger then, impulsive, afraid, and unable to see beyond his own failures. Instead of staying, he walked away, leaving behind a home and a little boy who begged him to stay. Now, after all these years, he had returned, hoping for just one chance to hear his son call him father again. The memory of that fateful morning in Oyo still burned in his mind. Back then, he was simply Ola, a young man full of dreams and restless energy. As dawn broke, he quietly packed a small bag. The first light of day crept through the cracks of the mud brick house, where his wife, Bisi, lay exhausted from a night of tears and pleading. Their son, little Timi, barely 8 years old, was curled up beside her, unaware that his father was about to disappear from his world. Ola paused in the doorway, staring at his sleeping son. Guilt and fear twisted inside him. He felt like a failure, unable to provide enough food, unable to keep a steady job, and unable to be the man his family needed. A father was supposed to be the head of the home, a provider and a protector. But all Ola saw in himself was a man who had only brought hardship. Shame gnawed at him. Neighbors whispered about his inadequacy, and relatives murmured about how his wife and child deserved better. Rather than face their judgment and his own overwhelming sense of failure, he convinced himself that leaving was the only way to give them a better life. If he was gone, perhaps Bisi could find support elsewhere, or even remarry someone better. He stepped out into the wet morning grass. But just as he took another step, a small, sleepy voice called from behind him, "Daddy." Ola froze. He turned to see little Timi standing in the doorway, rubbing his eyes. The soft patter of rain began on the thatched roof, as if the sky itself was mourning. "Where are you going?" the boy asked, his voice filled with confusion and an edge of fear. Ola could not see his son's eyes. He muttered something about finding work in the city, about coming back soon with money. It was a lie he needed to believe to take the next step. But Timi, even at 8, understood. His eyes widened with panic. He ran forward, his small frame soaked by the rain, and clung to his father's leg. "Don't go, Daddy, please." Ola's resolve nearly shattered. His son's tears burned like acid. He wanted so badly to kneel down to hold his boy and promise he would never leave. But a stubborn voice in his mind insisted that staying would only make things worse. With a trembling hand, he gently pried his son's arms away. "I'll be back," he whispered, placing a hand on Timi's head in farewell. The boy looked up at him, tears mixed with raindrops on his face, confusion turning to betrayal in his eyes. Ola turned away abruptly, unable to bear it another second. He walked into the morning rain, his son's cries of "Daddy, Daddy" echoing behind him. Each cry felt like a knife slicing through his soul. But still, he kept walking, and with every step, something precious inside him broke apart. The years that followed were a blur of wandering. Ola drifted from city to city, Ibadan, Abeokuta, even as far as Kano, taking whatever jobs he could find. He carried cement at construction sites, offloaded trucks in the markets, and at night. He slept in crowded rooms with other laborers. In the evenings, under the dim light of oil lamps, he would take out a crumpled photograph of Bisi as a toddler, one of the few possessions he had kept. In the photo, the boy grinned, 2 front teeth missing, holding up a new toy car. It had been taken on his 5th birthday, a day Ola had once been proud of. Now, looking at it only filled him with regret. Sometimes he cried silently into his arm, muffling the sound so no one would hear. He whispered prayers asking God to watch over his son. Though he had left in body, his heart had never truly departed. Through scattered news, he learned that Bisi moved back to her father's house with Timi. They had struggled, but the family had helped. Once a cousin from home ran into him in Lagos. "Your son is growing up, and you are not there." Those words cut deep. The shame kept Ola from reaching out. What could he offer them now? Then, one Harmattan season, he received devastating news. Bisi fell ill and passed away. The loss struck like a heavy blow. He had stayed away too long. Even in her sickness, no one had thought to find him. It was already too late. He mourned her in solitude, tormented by guilt. He abandoned not just his wife, but his son, in his greatest time of need. For years he drifted in and out of despair. But then, one evening in a tavern, he overheard 2 men discussing a rising music star from Ibadan named Timi. "He sings with so much soul," one of them said. "You can feel the pain in his voice. People say he mixes English and Yoruba beautifully. His music speaks of love, loss, and forgiveness." Ola's heart pounded. The name, the age, and the background, it had to be his son, his Timi. From that moment, he followed every piece of news of the singer, standing at newspaper stands and buying magazines with Timi's face on the cover. His son had grown into a successful, but all of it had happened without him. He had missed every milestone, every achievement. Holding a magazine with Timi's image, Ola made a decision. It was time to go home and face the family he had abandoned. It was long overdue. When he arrived in Ibadan, everything felt different. New buildings had risen. Old ones had crumbled. But the scent of fried plantains and wood smoke in the air remained the same. He made his way to Bisi's father's house, the last place he knew Timi had lived. At the compound, neighbors stared at him as he entered. Bisi's aunt, Mama Fola, a woman who had once been kind to him, gasped in shock at his appearance. "You have the nerve to show your face here?" she asked, her voice sharp with judgment. Ola lowered his head. "I've come to see my son," he said, his voice breaking. At the mention of Timi, the other old woman, whom he now recognized as their neighbor, clicked her tongue. "Timi," she muttered. "Timi, indeed. Did you remember you had a son all these years?" Ola felt a sting, but he knew he deserved that. "I know I have no excuse," he said, voice breaking. "I have come to beg for forgiveness. To see him, even if just, please, let me speak to him." He was close to dropping to his knees right there in the dirt. Mama Fola sighed deeply. Despite her sternness, her eyes held a glint of compassion. "Timi is not here. He hasn't lived here since Bisi passed," she said. "After his mother's burial, he left for Lagos to chase his music dream. We only see him when he comes for festivals or to see the elders." Another neighbor, a man older than Ola, stepped forward. "He was here last month for the new Yam festival at the palace," he added, less accusatory. "Performed for the crowd. The king praised him a lot. The boy has done well for himself." Ola nodded, a mix of pride and sadness swelling in him. Do you know where in Lagos he lives? He asked hesitantly. Or how I might find him? I know I do not deserve it, but I must try. Mama Folo wiped her hands on her wrapper and stood up. He has a house in Lagos in Ikea, but you think you can just walk up and knock as if nothing happened? Her voice was sharp, but then softened when she saw Ola's hunched posture, the tears brimming in his eyes. This was a broken man before her. In Yoruba culture, no matter how wayward someone has been, elders often decide to help reconcile family if they show true remorse. One does not, out of anger, discard the child one birthed, she said quietly. Perhaps the proverb was meant for Bissie's memory, or for herself as family to Timi, but Ola felt its weight. He had discarded his child in fear and anger, but blood is blood. He was here now to pick up the pieces, if it wasn't too late. After a tense pause, Mama Fola relented. She fetched a piece of paper and scribbled an address in Ikea and a phone number. This is his manager's number, she said. Maybe you will find him there, she said, her tone softening. And maybe, if you are lucky, he will listen. Ola held the paper like a lifeline. He whispered, "Thank you." Then, with a heart full of fear and hope, he set off for Lagos. As he turned to leave, one neighbor called out, "Ola." He stopped and looked back. The elderly neighbor's face had softened. "We will pray for you. May God have mercy on you." Ola's throat tightened. He murmured amen and walked out, clutching the address as if it were a lifeline. A week after reconnecting with Mama Fola, Ola found himself in front of an imposing iron gate in an upscale Lagos neighborhood. The home belonged to his estranged son, Timi, now a famous musician. Standing there, Ola felt out of place and deeply ashamed. For days, he had hesitated to make contact. How do you introduce yourself after 2 decades of absence? In the end, he gathered the courage to press the buzzer. "Who is it?" a guard asked through the intercom. Ola swallowed hard. "My name is Ola Coker. I'm here to see Timi." He hesitated, then added softly, "I'm his father." A long silence followed before the gate slowly swung open. Standing beyond it was a tall, well-dressed young man. Timi, he was even more handsome in person, carrying himself with confidence, but his eyes held a guarded expression. Ola's heart pounded as their eyes met. The moment was heavy, with years of unspoken words and wounds. "Why are you here?" Timi's voice was calm but distant. Ola's throat tightened. "Timi, my son," he whispered. Timi's expression hardened. "Don't call me that." His voice trembled with emotion. "Why now? After all these years?" Ola couldn't hold back the tears. He dropped to his knees, pleading, "I am sorry. I made a terrible mistake leaving you. I have no excuse, only regret. Please forgive me." Timi turned away, jaw clenched, his emotions warring within him. He had spent years convincing himself he didn't care. Yet here was the father he had once longed for, standing before him. "You left me," Timi finally said, his voice cracking. "You left me and my mother. Do you even know what that did to me?" Ola lowered his head. "I do, and I would give anything to undo the past." He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket, one of Timi as a child, the only piece of his son he had carried all these years. "I never forgot you." Timi hesitated before taking the photo. Memories flooded back, his childhood, his mother's struggles, and the nights he had wished for this very moment. The silence stretched between them, heavy with years of pain. But then, in the distance, one of Timi's songs played softly, a song about forgiveness. Something in him cracked. Despite the anger, despite the hurt. Without thinking, he pulled Ola up from the ground and into a tight embrace. "I missed you," Timi admitted, his voice thick with emotion. Ola held his son for the first time in 20 years, tears streaming down his face. "Can you ever forgive me?" Timi pulled back slightly, his eyes still glistening. "It will take time," he said honestly, "but I want to try." Ola nodded, overwhelmed with gratitude. "Come inside, Baba," Timi said softly, and for the first time in decades, father and son walked side by side. not to erase the past, but to build something new. That night, they ate dinner together for the first time in a lifetime. Timi insisted on preparing something simple himself. He cooked rice with melon soup, a dish his mother had taught him. His father was surprised that fame did not strip away his humility. As they sat on the floor around the low table, Timi laughed, saying how he'd missed eating the traditional way. Ola felt a warmth he hadn't felt in ages. They shared the meal, occasionally catching each other's eyes and smiling shyly, like they were both learning how to be a family again. Timi narrated his ordeal to his father, how his mother died because she was heartbroken. He wished she was alive to see him successfully. He knew deep in his heart that sending his father away would have been the easier thing to do. But forgiveness was the best thing for both of them. His father messed up, but he wasn't going to act like his father. Forgiveness made the burden lighter rather than the bitterness he had carried with him for a very long time. Timi brought out his guitar afterward and played softly. They sang a Yoruba folk song that Ola had taught him as a child. It was a song about a good and virtuous child. Timi's rich voice carried the melody, and Ola, though his voice cracked, joined in harmony. The sound floated out into the quiet Lagos night, carrying with it a message of reunion. In the months that followed, Timi's close friends and team noticed a change in him, a new depth to his music, and a lightness in his spirit. He spoke in interviews about the importance of family and even dedicated a new song to an unexpected reunion that healed my soul, though he kept details private. Ola, for his part, moved back to Ibadan, but with a heart filled with gratitude. At Timi's gentle insistence, he took a small flat that his son arranged for him, not far from Mama Fola's house. Ola was satisfied with his son's forgiveness, and never wanted to live off his son's wealth. He knew that he deserved nothing from Timi, but Timi held his hand and said, "Please, Baba, let me do this. I want to take care of you. I couldn't take care of my mum before she passed away. I have no siblings to share my success with. Please let me take care of you." He echoed the Yoruba ideal of children caring for their parents, a cycle of duty and goodness. For the first time, Ola allowed himself to accept Timi's kindness. He visited Lagos often, especially when Timi had big concerts. He always stood quietly at the side of the stage during soundcheck, his eyes always glued to the young star under the spotlight. And whenever the crowd cheered and Timi bowed at the end of the performance, you'd see that same man clapping and wiping tears of joy, whispering, "Thank you, God." One evening, after a particularly triumphant concert, where Timi received a music award on stage, he surprised everyone by inviting his father up before the audience. The spotlight shifted as Ola, heart pounding, joined his son on stage. Timi put an arm around his father's shoulders and simply said into the microphone, "Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome my father." The crowd erupted in applause. Many knew Timi's songs about forgiveness, and they guessed at what the moment meant for him. Ola, shy and overwhelmed, managed a tearful smile and a wave. Father and son stood side by side under the bright lights, united and at peace. As the applause washed over them, Ola thought of the journey that had brought him here, the mistakes of his youth, the long lonely years, and the miracle of reunion. He squeezed his son's shoulder, and Timi squeezed back, both of them smiling through their tears. In that moment, Ola knew that though he could not change the past, the future was a gift. The Yoruba have a saying, "He who falls and gets up has learned a lesson." He had fallen hard, but with his son's forgiveness, he had found the strength to stand again, and together they would walk forward as father and son, healing the wounds of yesterday with the love and understanding they found today.
Underneath the stars, worlds begin to